speaker today. He is coming to us with loads of useful and practical information about excellence, innovation, and transformation. He is a seasoned professional and veteran in the areas of process improvement in the financial services industry. And I'm talking about Roland Bolt, who is here with us. Hello there, Roland. Great to have you with us. Roland is the Vice President of Global Consulting at iGraphics, has over 25 years of consulting experience in the business process and enterprise architecture space, with a focus on finance, telecommunications, and the defense industries. He shares his experiences, by the way, freely as a speaker on conferences and webinars, as well in his podcast, which is called What is Your Baseline? Enterprise Architecture and Business Process Management Demystified, which I have been a guest in the past. I'm very honored to be part of that. He does a tremendous job on that, and we have him here today live with us. Roland, what an honor to have a great leader of excellence in innovation and transformation like yourself, generously sharing your expertise with our global industry, with our global audience today. Roland, thank you for being here.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on the conference, Jose. It's always a pleasure working with you. But I'm not alone here. I also brought one of my colleagues, James Barakalis, to the meeting, because what we're going to do is we're going to walk through a couple of slides, but nothing is more boring than going through slides. And we have James showing how you can do process improvement in our Process 360 Live tool stack. And we go on from there. So welcome, James.
Thank you very much, Roland. I'm very happy to be here.
So what does process improvement mean for you, right? Especially in the financial industry. Well, is it just process modeling? Is it automation? Is it process mining? Is it publishing of job aids and SOPs or compliance? One of the things that I noticed in the time that I consulted with financial service companies is a lack of visibility. You have tons of homegrown systems, right? So there's not a lot of standardization. And I've seen clients struggle over and over with getting their arms around you and get the visibility into the things that are actually going on with the intent to improve this. So what we're going to talk about today is basically how you could set up a process lifecycle that helps you in managing your processes and improving them and getting better results on your system implementations and your standardization efforts. So when I look at the audiences for process improvements, we typically see 4 big categories, right? And that's obviously nuances there and variances there, but at the end of the day, we see those 4 archetypes. One is the employees. You need to provide material and process insight to help them during the execution of those processes, and obviously capturing their input to simplify those. The second group are executives. You want to be alerted of failures, right, of your processes in real time and be able to take the best action. And then obviously you have the group that I would assume a majority of you are in there. It's the process analysts, right? Trying to figure out where are possibilities for optimization. Where do I see process weaknesses that I can eliminate? And then lastly, obviously our friends from IT, right? People who look at automation of processes, right? And process improvement techniques, as James will show in a few minutes, can help you identify those opportunities to optimize processes by automating them with workflow technology, with robotics process automation, and other things. So when I look at the most common use cases that I see our clients struggling with, right? It's a mix of IT and business, right? And when we start in the upper left-hand corner, we see things like continuous improvement, which is obviously the topic of the talk here, right? How do I detect and act on issues that I see and opportunities for improvement? But then when we go into the execution, right? I want to know how effective am I in doing my processes, right? So when you see a business process owner role, for example, they are interested in to see hey, are my processes executed as I've designed them? Right? Do we follow the internal policies for this, and do we get the results that we need to achieve? And then when I go down into the second row, I can obviously see all of our friends from risk and compliance, right? They want to make sure and identify and see if the processes are executed in accordance with the relevant regulations. When we go further to the left, then we see the identification of process automation potential, right? Do we see things where we can standardize? Do we see failures where process interfaces don't work and then a human has to be the swivel chair interface, and so on and so forth? And when we go down on the lowest row of this diagram here, we see then the IT implementation when it comes to automation. And the first thing that I typically recommend clients to go with is to have a measure first approach when it comes to blueprinting their implementation, right? So discover your as-is processes, see how they perform before you even go and think about redesigning those processes. Because if you just automate the old process with digital technology, how do you think you get a better result, right? So measure first, redesign your process, and then automate. And once you've automated, you obviously want to know, was my deployment successful, right? Do my users actually do the process as I've designed them, right? As I've implemented them? Because that is also, when you put your hat on as the project delivery manager, that's obviously the validation that you did your job right and you didn't miss something in part of your blueprint. But all those use cases are embedded into a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is what I like to call the process lifecycle. And it's comprised of 5 steps. And you see in the lanes here, there's a design part and there's an execution part, right? So what I typically see is clients starting with the first bubble, right? The high-level design and program roadmap. I didn't want to put the old word strategy in there, but that's part of it, right? In that phase, you capture the as-is, your what runs, and you look at the different architecture views and you do some analysis. And more importantly, when you figure out, oh, this is something that I want to improve, you come up with a roadmap how to improve this. So you define your transition states. Today I'm here, 6 months from now I want to be here, 12 months from now I want to be here. And you will quickly figure out that there are a lot of dependencies, right? Oh, if I want to improve this process, well, I have to update this system first. Oh, and before I do this, I need to do this org change. And by the way, has anyone thought about risk implications here? So this becomes your center point, the repository where you capture all that information becomes the center point of your process lifecycle. And I typically like to call this an enterprise baseline. One of the reasons why we call it the podcast, What's Your Baseline? But then once you have this, and you figured out your roadmap, right, and you have your transition states, well, then you take one improvement point and you make a project of it, and you look at one transition state and create a solution design for it. So you design the change in process, you design the change in organizational roles, apps, data, and so on, right? And I really liked, and I don't know if it's out of fashion by now, as SAP called it like 15 years ago, with a business and a technical blueprint, right? Both need to go hand in hand. And then after that, you go into the implementation step. And this is where you actually start wrenching, where you go and implement the processes. And to be very, very serious, you need to keep your business blueprint or your blueprint documentation up to date. Because what do you do when you're at the end of your implementation, right? You go and your as implemented becomes the new as is, what runs, right? So you need to keep this up to date so that the next team that looks at your enterprise baseline will have an updated information basis to do their work there. Oh, and by the way, once you implement it, have a party, right? We're all humans, so celebrate your successes. And then you go into your process execution. So you let your processes run. Your people do things in your systems, right? Or in your new organization. And the main topic here is you want to see, do I meet my SLAs? right? Does the process take the maximum time of X as you've defined it, right? And typically you build dashboards and you connect your systems to it to get those alerts from your systems. And then the last phase, as you can see in on the left-hand side in the design lane, is you want to measure and analyze, right? This is where tools like process mining come in, right? You take a step back and you want to know, oh, do I see patterns evolving, right? Do my users actually do what they want to do or what they're supposed to do, right? And with process mining, for example, one feature, without going too much into the detail, is you can take your blueprint from your solution design phase and you upload it into your process mining tool. And then you can do what we call a conformance check, right? And you see visually in the discovered process model, did my users comply to this reference process, or did I forget something? Or are there steps that are not covered or not 100% complied, and all those things. But the whole idea of the whole measure and analyze phase, and you do many more analysis there, the whole idea is to get more input for the next iteration of this life cycle, right? So get new requirements to see, oh, now we implemented this transition state. What is the impact on the other activities that I have going on in my program portfolio? So keep this graphic in mind when you look at your business processes, right? They all go through this circle in some form of another. So, but how does it look like now to make your process living and breathing, right? And the first thing that you would do is, if you have no idea how to start this, is to say, okay, start with the discovery phase, right? And when you see it on the left-hand side, steps 1 and 2 is, well, discover it either from a human perspective, but bringing in your subject matter experts, as you've done over and over in the past, or step number 2, use mining technology, plug it into your systems, get the process discovered as they really happen. But don't forget, you need people there, people who do the interpretation of what the tool shows you. And then once you have this, you transfer it into your repository, and then you start developing your future state process, right, in the design phase, into your blueprinting phase. And one part of that is, and that's steps 4, is you want to simulate your processes, right? So you use a simulation engine and you figure out, how does my future state process look the best, right? Is it the fastest, the cheapest, the one with the least resources, and so on and so forth, before you start wrenching, right? Because wrenching costs money, and you change your organization and all those things. And then you automate it in step 5. And then in step 7, you look for compliance, as we've seen in the use cases, right? Operational, regulatory, and so on and so forth, and see if you follow up with this. And then you go into the monitor phase, right? Which is closing actually the life cycle, right? That was our measure and monitor, or measure and analyze phase in the life cycle slide before. One twist that we bring to the table is we also have a prediction phase in our steps here. So our AI-powered tools will give you the information based on the data that is there, and they learned how others went, to say, oh yeah, we think that this case will end up here and here and here, and we'll take these steps, which also, combined with the alerting functionality in our tools, can give you a hint, right? And say, oh, hold on, we're about to lose a customer, or we're about to go over that thing. Now you have to go into the exercise of taking action. So all these things are visualization of the process lifecycle before. But then the question that comes up is, well, how do I get started, right? What are the in this case, 5 steps or 5 things that I want to have a look at when I want to manage my processes? And the first one is, you build up a process portfolio, right? You should have a repository where you can access and organize thousands of your disparate processes. And while you're doing this, well, guess what? You see and will learn that your processes interact with each other, and you have variations in there and all those type of things, which you wouldn't see if you would do process management on a whiteboard or on a napkin or in a Visio diagram. So you want to have a central database-driven repository that helps you with that exercise. And then obviously, one outcome of process management is that you have documents, right? You want to give people access to regulations, to job aids, to procedures, to standard operating documents that are generated out of the process information and not by a human sitting in front of a text editor. The next thing you want to do is you want to align your strategy to your processes, right? And the key term, talk to your friendly enterprise architecture from your neighborhood, is capabilities. So the abstraction of things that an organization can do. But you also want to, whenever you do a process design, you want to think about performance. You know, how do I measure these things? And then once you have it, you want to have obviously a multifaceted modeling, right? You want to have all the stuff that James will show you in a minute. You want to see your as is. You want to see the simulation results. You want to see multiple options of a to-be process being designed, right? And you want to put on different analytics on your to-be, right? And this is where pure player process mining tools fall short, because they always will just refer to that data set. What happens if your old process just doesn't work and you start from scratch? Then you're out of luck with a simple pure play process mining tool. And speaking of which, obviously you want to use mining technology to accurately get the process analysis, right? And there's also where the prediction capability is housed that I spoke before. So when I look at this, and this is what James will show in a minute, is we obviously, and that's a shameless pitch, we obviously have a platform for this. And our iGraphics Process 360 Live platform covers exactly those three areas that I spoke about. You know, the operational intelligence with mining and root cause analysis and predictions and all that stuff. You see automation, where we do have conversational UIs, where we have a seamless integration with a process design and the customer journeys, and bring in, most importantly, information from your systems of truth. You know, your Archer risk and compliance goes into your iGraphics design module, so that you don't have information scattered all over the place. And speaking of the repository, we obviously do have a database-driven repository that allows you to do all the things that you see in the right-hand box. You know, you have the central process repository that I spoke about. You see modeling, customer journeys, and so on and so forth. But enough talk from me. I'd like to hand it over to James now, who will give you a quick demonstration how things could look like in the Process 360 Live platform. James, please take over.
Thank you very much, Roland. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen so that you can see the information that Roland was talking about with respect to the Process 360 Live and the ability to be able to combine all of this data to be able to improve your process. So what you're seeing here is the iGraphics dashboarding area, and this is a way for a process owner to be able to manage a process or a series of processes that are under his or her responsibility. And in this case, this specific process, which is the personal loan process, is being seen through the lens of a customer journey. We can see that the customer journey is broken down into several moments where the customer shows interest, they do their research, they apply for the loan, accept the offer, they communicate back and forth with you as the organization in servicing that specific loan. And of course, what we want as an organization is for them to refer our services to their friends and colleagues. Now, this specific process owner may be looking at this specific information and noticing that the average cycle time for this specific process is in the red, and it's been in the red consistently for some time now. We can see that the traffic light indicator of red, yellow, and green is indicating where this specific metric should be. And we can see right now that it's not anywhere near where it should be for the purpose of showing that this process is performing well. We can also see that there are various areas of this process, various milestones that are doing well. Some are doing relatively well. We can see others that aren't doing well. And if you wanted other metrics, again, you'd be able to get that information right here so that you can monitor all of this information in real time right here in your dashboard. This information coming, of course, from the process mining capabilities that we offer. So suppose this specific user wants to investigate a little bit more and understand what it is that is causing these problems. Well, if they want to go in and look at the apply area, they can see that there are 3 milestones for this specific process, and they can now expand this to be able to get a little bit more information on this specific process. Let's go to the BPMN diagram to be able to get details as to how this specific process is executed. We can see that the process is reviewed, or I should say the loan is reviewed. After that's been approved, then they approve the qualified loan. You initiate a loan file, review the loan, and of course they're going to perform a final check, sign the loan, provision funds, fund it, and that would end the process. Each of these being a sub-process that can be investigated a little further. Now, upon this person's investigation, they go into review and qualify personal loan. They can see that this specific process is having some issues. Now, they know this because this specific process was mined. In process mining, they went in and they were able to see, for example, that when the start of this process occurs, the qualify loan activity is typically the first one. And we can see that it's taking about a month, 2 weeks on average to qualify these loans. This is something that was also seen by actually simulating this information so that they could see this information going through. One second. So I could see that information going through and the transactions that have been mined flowing through the system. So here we see that information, and we can see that as soon as this specific process is getting to this area, we can see that it's taking a long time here in this specific step in the process, whereas once it leaves there, we can see that the information is now moving much more quickly. And so perhaps they want to go ahead and analyze these sub-processes we saw before, and they want to see what's going on with this specific process. Well, that too can also be mined to be able to get additional insights. So they go in, they go ahead and mine that specific process, and they're able to see some additional information here. And that additional information reveals that really what's happening is that the process is getting bogged down every time we have to take control action, which is taking on average 5 days and 21 hours. And we know this because of the fact that there are some KYC or know your customer activities that are happening within this process. Going back to the process diagram, we can see that once the loan is checked, an exclusion list is then checked. And we know that this is happening in the core banking system with the KYC tool and the KYC risk module. We know this because of the fact that iGraphics is giving you the ability to do business modeling, and that is to be able to look at all of the systems that are involved in the process. We can see who is involved in this process, who owns it. We can see what risks have been identified. And again, that regulatory requirement of know your customer that's governing this specific process. And so this specific activity is going through, and if they are already a client, of course, we already onboard them, but when they're not, then we have to check the exclusion list. And we find that that's actually happening manually. They're having to go into the core banking system, to the KYC tool, the KYC risk module, and at times they are having some false positives. If they go ahead and there is a hit here, then it will then go to that take control action, which again takes 5 days. Now, if they pass this exclusion list check, there's a couple different checks that have to be done. One is an S&E screening and one is a PEP screening. Again, 2 manual steps, having to go back into the core banking system, the KYC tool, the KYC risk module, and we can see that in the PEP screening, there's another database that needs to be checked. All of these systems are systems that have to be logged in by the specific users, and because of that, there are some false positives that occur. Every time one occurs, then we have to go down this path to take the control action. And so when mining this process, it is found that if we're able to reduce the amount of false positives that occur from check request down to the take control action, then we should be able to reduce the cycle time from 2 weeks, 2 days to something a little bit more manageable. So this is where process simulation comes into play. You can use iGraphics to do process simulation to be able to use this data by downloading this data to a CSV and then importing that into our simulator to be able to test some assumptions. Maybe you decide that if you're able, or you do some research and you figure out that if you're able to reduce those false positives by just 30%, maybe taking the hit rate of 10% for the exclusion list hits, and maybe taking this from 15 down to 10%. If you're able to do that, then you should be able to reduce the cycle time considerably, just because you're reducing the amount of transactions that are having to go this way into this necessary take control action step. Perhaps because of the research that's being done here, there's really not much you can do to be able to reduce the amount of time that it takes to take this specific step in the process. However, if you can reduce the amount of transactions that go this way, then you can reduce the cycle time as you want to. So after that analysis, it's deemed that this is a really good idea. We're going to go ahead and try to automate this. And then you would use our automation capabilities in order to do that. So let's show what that would look like. Here we have a new automation that's been built. Rather than the user have to go into the system in order to be able to perform all of these tasks in this system and then in multiple other ones, they can go ahead and do everything through some chat technology. So we'll go ahead and go back and we'll go ahead and say we're going to start a new process. And notice it's saying welcome to the onboarding process. You can have direct links from here that take you directly into iGraphics to be able to the design platform of iGraphics, again, to see how this specific process is supposed to be executed. And all of that can be accessed from right here. And we can see here that what we want is we want to go ahead and upload a passport, a driver's license, and a utility bill. So rather than having to go and analyze that information, we're going to use OCR technology to just upload this information here, and we'll be able to just send this off in order to be able to begin this process. Now, once this is sent off, then the system is going to be able to use that OCR technology to be able to read the information that's on the passport, on the driver's license. And here it's saying we've extracted the following information from these documents. And if I wanted to look at this a little further, I can now look at this and make sure that all of this information matches. From here, it's now making a recommendation. It's saying, is there anything else that you'd like to correct or change here before we run the background check? Again, the system is now going to connect to the background check system to be able to do that. So I'm going to say nothing needs to be changed. This all looks accurate. And now it's letting me know that the credit check and background checks are being run. Now there's an AI component to this. And what we're going to see is that the system is going to recommend we take some action based upon what other users have done in the past. Notice it says that the credit score is 820. The average credit score of approved customers is 810. But the AI is recommending that we request more information. Now, the reason why it's doing this is it's noticing that the country of issue of that passport is different from the citizen's country of birth. And the AI has figured out that in the past, every time that has happened, we've needed to run a more in-depth background check. And so now it's recommending that we do that. So we're going to go ahead and request more information here. And then from doing that, we can go in and get the instructions on how we can do that, again, directly from the iGraphics design platform, where it's now giving us instructions on exactly how we can perform these steps. Here I can watch a video to make sure that I do that correctly. And then now it's going to request that I put in some additional information. Here we have the background check number. We're going to say that they have passed. I'm going to approve this. And just like that, it's going to let us know that this specific person has been onboarded. And if I want to see metrics on this for the overall health of the process, again, it's going to take me back to that dashboard. So now that we have done this, if I want to go in and I want to be able to see exactly how this specific process is doing now that we've implemented this automation, I could go in and see exactly what this process looks like now. And going in, I can see where I used to have 2 weeks and 2 days, 2 weeks and 2 days. Now I'm looking at 2 days and 21 hours as the process. We can see that this is actually looking much different in that most of my transactions are now going through this check request activity, going directly to the check exclusion list. And we can see that take control action is now even taking less time because again, there's less to research. We can also see that although this process isn't conforming perfectly, it's conforming better. And again, this is just letting us know that there may be some additional work that we might need to do to improve this process further. But this specific user going back to their dashboard can now see that this process is much improved. Where we had that cycle time of 2 weeks, now we're going down. We can see that this is much improved, much closer to where we want to be, which is now in the green zone. And again, because we're continuously monitoring this process with mining, more opportunities for this specific process may be able to be revealed, where we can use a combination of process mining, process discovery, process simulation, and process automation to continue to iteratively improve this process over time. So thank you very much. This was a very quick demonstration of how you could use the iGraphics toolset to be able to improve a process. We'll go ahead and turn back over to Roland.
And I hope you can see my screen now. And I think I want to show this one here. Yes, this one. So only question that obviously, thank you, James, for doing this demonstration. And it's exactly, I think, what's exciting to see how the full process lifecycle comes to fruition. But obviously, the question that comes up is where can you learn more, right? And we got 2 resources for you. One is obviously, and I mentioned it a couple of times, we do have a podcast. It's called What's Your Baseline, right? You find it on what'syourbaseline.com/podcast, where we talk about all those different topics. And obviously, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon, wherever you typically get your podcasts. And I'm inviting you to joining the group of almost 1,100 people on LinkedIn who are part of the What's Your Baseline family. And of course, you can reach out to us, right? If you like the tools, if you like the capabilities that James showed you, please reach out to us, right? You see it in the lower left-hand corner, right? We have a website, you find stuff there. You can reach out to James or I directly via email, and we're inviting you to send us your questions. If we run out of time, and Jose, this is obviously where you come back in, if we can answer all the questions that you have in the QA. Jose, back to you.
Outstanding, Roland. Outstanding, James. Really great presentation on really some of the leading applications and tools and techniques that we can be using for the process life cycle for the transformation that process-based transformation that so many organizations are engaging on. So there are a lot of questions that came here. There are a lot of questions that came through LinkedIn as well. Thank you, everybody, for submitting those questions. I think the main one is about the basics on how do you even get started, Roland, on managing a complete process life cycle like what you have demonstrated here. I mean, for those who are getting started, what is your advice for them?
Yeah, so I think it's hard, right? It's hard finding all the different pieces that you look at and whatnot. And one thing that is very obvious is you need to have a sponsor, right? If you don't go and start it bottom up, there's a high probability that your initiative might fail because you don't get the sponsor or the leadership buy-in. So that would be the first things, right? Find a sponsor who has enough influence over the organization that they can actually, well, sponsor your initiative, right? The second thing that I would recommend is be very, very clear in developing a strategy, your objectives for that initiative, right? Make it clear why you want to do this, right? Why is it beneficial? Because at the beginning, you ask people to do more than what they typically do in their day-to-day life. And everybody asks the question, why should I do more, right? Then, and only then, you then look at the tool stack that you will need. And I think I made the pitch for, which I think the best tool stack in the world that you can buy for this. But you look at the requirements when you need this. And then lastly, when you do the implementation of that tool stack, is look at the maturity of your organization, right? So you want to avoid overwhelming people, but you also want to avoid that they fall back to whiteboards and napkins and all these type of things where the process information is housed, because that's not reusable. So the very last step is, and then I shut up, is take an inventory of the existing content that you might have, right? What is the stuff that should go into your tool?
Very good insights. James, is there anything else to add there? Maybe even from a more technical standpoint, what type of skill set do you need in your organization to start rolling out some of the tools that you share here with us?
Obviously, having process managers are very good to have, but different process owners, people who are familiar with the different processes, even if they're not business process management practitioners, those who are familiar with the processes, those who know exactly the roles involved, all of these different users, or I should say roles in the organization, can provide valuable insights to be able to understand what the pain points are, understand where you might want to look to for improvement. And it really is a collaborative effort with a lot of people in the organization. We don't want to give the impression that with just a few process management people, we can just get all of this done. You still do need a lot of collaboration from the people on the ground who are actually executing these processes, whether they be business process practitioners or not.
Very well. I have a couple quick questions here. The first one is on how much do organizations need to have established before they ask for help, before say, hey, iGraphics, can you come here and help us? Because they may not have their processes documented, for example. Is that a requirement that they document their processes before they even engage you? Because otherwise it will be a waste of time. What type of baseline they must have?
Oh, I love it. I love it, Jose. Let me take that question then. The answer is no. You don't need to have everything mapped out to the nth degree, right? No. What you should have is you should have a good initial understanding of your processes. That could be, and I don't want to go into many details, that could be obviously a vertical decomposition. These are the 10, 15 main processes that we have in our organization and who's responsible for it. But it also could be end-to-end walkthroughs through those processes, like an procure to pay or an order to cash, right? So you should have a good initial understanding of that process. And that could be, and now I talking against myself, that could be a napkin, right? You just put boxes and arrows on a piece of paper. But that helps you then to identify the systems where you do those, where you hold the data. And then once you have this, you can plug in the process mining tool as James has shown it, and it will give you a discover process. And that can be then taken, put into the design repository, and there you can model your future state and do simulation and all those wonderful things, automation that James just showed. So I think you don't have to have everything done, but you need to have an understanding of it, right? And last but not least, you should, when you do this, involve multiple people, right? That's not you in a closet doing this. This is you plus IT people, plus process improvement people, plus auditors or risk people, and so on and so forth. It's a collaborative effort. So make friends. Excellent. Would be my recommendation.
Very well, very well. Hey, listen, I'm picking up on a question here from John Saunders, who is watching live, and he said, John, as his background, he is Wall Street executive for several years and lots of experiences implementing improvements and innovations. And I think you even mentioned on actually in your closing slide, you had like a little tag there that said that 70% of transformations or digital transformations are falling short. Honestly, in a lot of cases, I think that number is even much higher than that. depending on how you look at that number, what success looks like. But in any case, his question is, what are you seeing across industries and especially on financial services on there's a great excitement about digitally transforming, but the failure rate's so high. What's driving that high failure rate?
So we took this quote from one of the analyst firms, right? So that's not just us seeing this, but I think the percentage is in that realm. In my opinion, I think it starts with the definition of what is digital transformation, right? I think that's a very misused term. At the end of the day, I think it's how you scope it, right? What is any system upgrade or digital, whatever, right? And the other thing is, how do you define it when it comes to implementations? So what I see people missing is having that visibility, and I mentioned it in the lifecycle slide, the enterprise baseline. How are things wired up? What are all the different influences that go in there? Which applications support it? Which data do I use? Where does it come from? How is it processed? What risk and control? All that type of stuff, that is typically not known. And then organizations go on their journey, full with good intentions, full steam ahead, and they run into roadblocks. And that is what brings them off the course, because they did not have, and that's why I said it in the beginning, they did not have the visibility they needed to scope things out correctly and plan things out correctly in their blueprint. And that's one of the reasons why we see that high number of failures.
Very well, very well. And what about when it comes to Proqis 360 Live? There are a lot of new tools coming to the marketplace right now. Intelligent BPM and RPA and binding platforms that sometimes they kind of like they are I would say integrated to a certain extent. I'm curious about how you position Proqis 360 and how it differs from a lot of these other types of platforms.
Yeah, I'll take this one since it's tool specific. Well, Proqis 360 Live is a complete solution. It offers a single source of truth, first of all, for all of the organization's processes, and that better facilitates good design because it allows that collaborative effort that we were talking about before. It allows those who are executing processes to those who are managing processes to work within the same system and have reliance on the information that's in there. The process mining component of Proqis 360 Live not only provides for analysis of your processes, but also provides for continuous monitoring once those optimization outcomes have occurred, so that you can ensure that those outcomes have given you the benefit that you were looking for. There's also a predictive analysis component that can help organizations get in front of problems so that you're not waiting for breakdowns in order to address issues that may occur within the processes that have been identified. Something else is the simulation capabilities, which is another component of Proqis 360 Live, which is very important because it integrates with mining and it allows you to test out hypotheses. You may have done some analysis on your process, you may have mined it, you may have an idea on what is going to provide that benefit, that process optimization benefit. Could be, implementing RPA in a specific location, or doing a full automation. The simulation capabilities allows you to test your hypotheses so that you can see the difference between your as is versus your future state in a virtual environment. So you can see if the cost savings are projected to be realized, if the resource utilization is projected to be realized. You can do that in a virtual environment before you go through the effort of doing a costly implementation, and then afterwards finding out that what you thought was going to happen didn't actually become realized. And so by having all of this information in one complete suite, you can see everything from that 360 view, which is why, again, we call it Proqis 360 Live.
Outstanding. Roland and James, our time is up, but I want to make sure that we get one final reminder to our audience. What is the best way for them to learn about, to follow up, to ask questions, to learn a little bit more about Proqis 360 and really the work that you do?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to just go to our website, igraphics.com, And I'm not sure if you're going to share the slides afterwards, which we're happy to do this. But obviously, you can also reach out to myself and James via email. So it's roland.volt@igraphics.com or james.barrocalis@igraphics.com. And we're happy to give you more information and talk with you about your challenge and how we solve that challenge.
That's excellent. And I want to remind our audience, we put a link in the chat here. We have a post that has every one of our speakers tagged on that post, and you can connect directly with them as well. And of course, go directly for the iGraphics website. But on LinkedIn, where some of you are asking questions, some of you are sending me private messages on LinkedIn, which is good. It's all good. Keep doing that. And on that post on LinkedIn, you see Roland's and James' connection link, if you will. Roland and James, what a great way to start this conference on financial services, improvements and innovations. And thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your wisdom and expertise with our global audience today.
Hey, and thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure working with you, Jose. So looking forward to more to come.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Roland and James with iGraphics sharing their wisdom and expertise about the ways that we're using process definitions and simulations and mining as they share with us. We're going to be taking a break now. We're going to be closing this session. I want to give you a few reminders just before I close the session. One is that all of the sessions are getting recorded. And as a registered participant for a BTOES event, you're automatically entitled to all of the recordings. So you will receive through email a link and password to all of these recorded sessions. So you'll be able to watch at your own time. I know there are hundreds of you who watch live, and there are hundreds of you who consume this type of content on your own time later on, because you may have work conflicts that you may miss some of the sessions. So remember that as a registered participant, you will have access to all of the recordings. Also check out under my name on LinkedIn. I have a posting for this conference, and in that posting we have all of the speakers listed in there, and you can connect directly with those speakers and ask them directly questions. We do not want to be the middle person here. We want you to have access directly to the source of these presentations. So with that, we're going to be taking a break, coming back at the top of the hour. And when we come back at the top of the hour, I'm going to be joined by Luisella Gianni. Luisella is the Europe, Middle East, and Africa Head of Industry Transformation at Oracle. And she's going to be talking about the new levers for operational efficiencies, balancing digitization with evolving risks and sustainability. And I'll be back with her at the top of the hour. Thank you very much.